everyone. Welcome back. And today we have a very important topic, which is we will go back, touch again on the topic of maternal bias. So it be about some experience of mothers in the workplace. So this is what the examples will be today. And to refresh your memory, let's talk and get a little bit of what maternal bias is about. And here it goes. Motherhood triggers false assumptions that women are less committed to their careers and even less competent. So this is why this bias really hits women at the core, like it's mothers at the core, and it's a really difficult one for them to fight, to break, to interrupt. And before we get started, I want to share again the video with the definition of the bias because I find this it's really important, and I want us to refresh and get to know about it again.
Two quick reminders before I get started. First, people of all genders fall into bias traps, not just men. Second, knowing that unconscious bias exists isn't enough. We need to look for it and commit to take steps to counteract it. Motherhood triggers assumptions that women are less committed to their careers and less competent. It can intensify the performance bias that women already face. As a result, mothers are often given fewer opportunities and held to higher standards than fathers. We fall into the trap of thinking mothers are not as interested in their jobs now that they have kids, so we assume that they don't want that challenging assignment or to go on that big work trip. Because we think they're less committed, we're more likely to penalise them for small mistakes or oversights. Research shows that maternal bias is the strongest kind of gender bias. In one study, when PTA coordinator is added to a woman's resume, she is 79% less likely to be hired. She's half as likely to be promoted, and she's offered an average of $11,000 less in salary. Interestingly, maternal bias also starts early. As soon as women get engaged, they face pushback because we assume they're going to have children. And men face some pushback when they become parents too. Studies show that fathers who take time off for family reasons receive lower performance ratings and experience steeper reductions in future earnings than mothers who do. Now you know how maternal bias works. As a next step, you can use our bias cards to learn specific ways it shows up in the workplace and what to do about it.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Okay, so let's dive into it today and see what we can learn so then we can interrupt. Because as from one research and one article I read from the Harvard Business Review, and they were saying that bias are very difficult to eradicate, and we have several examples from the past few days that it's understandable why it's difficult to eradicate, because some of them are so inborn, like inside of a company culture or inside of our own cultures that we don't see them. We believe that that's just the way it is. But as I say, it's difficult to eradicate, but it's not that difficult to interrupt, to break. And for doing that we need to have the awareness and to take action when we see it happening. So this is what we are going to do here today. See some cases where we can learn from and then see what we can do about it. So the first one for today goes for review and promotions. And here's the case. A colleague recommends a man for promotion over a woman, saying, I'm not sure about her long-term commitment. She just got engaged, and I think she wants to have a kid soon. Before going to the research itself, the their feedback, their conclusions and their advices, I want to give my own advice, my own view on this here, because here's the language. It's everything in this phrase here, in this sentence. It's about assumption, is a subjective language. There's no proof, there's no fact. And I call this attention to you. I call this to your attention because we are talking, we are learning about the bias, but we are also learning how to use effective communication to interrupt them, to break the pattern. And you see here, I'm not sure. She just got engaged, and I think. So these are kind of languages that when you hear them, they're subjective, they don't bring facts, and you should always ask for the facts. So why it matters? When coworkers make assumptions, as I said, about women's commitment to work based on what's happening in her personal life, it unfairly limits her opportunities and could cause your company to miss out on highly committed candidate. It's also illegal in many states to consider a person's marital or parental status as a factor in promotions. This is based on in the American context. So I don't know if in Europe there's some laws about that that is illegal to consider a person marital or paternal state as a factor in promotion. So we will need to check that further. What to do? Suggest to your colleague that women should decide for themselves whether or not they want to take on new challenge at work. If you're feeling bold, you can also point out a double standard. It's hard to imagine that we would say that about a man who recently got engaged. And also, I think you should ask your colleague for the facts. Why are you saying that? Did you hear her mentioning that? Did she do anything that makes you think about that? But even if she has done something that makes you think about it, you still need to confirm with her if your impression, if your assumption is real, is what you're thinking. We think about many things, people. We assume many things. And as I said before, and I repeat here, assumptions are the mothers of all fuck ups. So don't assume, ask questions, ask for the facts. Why it happens? When women get engaged or married, studies show that they start to experience maternal bias. When they get married or engaged, not even have children yet, people consciously or unconsciously start to question their competence and commitment based on the mistaken belief that women can't be fully present at work if they have family responsibilities at home. So there you go, ladies. There you go. Asking. These are things you will face if you get engaged, if you're getting married. And my suggestion here is, as we know here, that these, even if people don't say it, if they are not mentioning about it openly, there might be happening in their minds, they might be thinking. So if you're in a position in your career where you want to grow, it's your plan, no matter if you have a family and so on and so forth. I believe you should communicate that to your manager, to your superiors. You should share your plans. You should talk about your plans among your peers, because then if these conversations are happening in the background, you just calm them down. The next example here goes for hiring. Let's go to this situation. Your colleague advocates for a job candidate with no gap in her resume over another with a gap from when she was a full-time mom. Why it matters. Companies that look negatively on job applicants who take time off to raise kids risk missing out on qualified candidates, in particular women. Mothers are more likely than fathers to take time off for childcare, and they face harsher career penalties when they do. What to do? Push for candidates to be evaluated on their skills and experience without taking into account the time taken off for caregiving or for whatever, for a sabbatical. How in the longer term, recommend that your team uses standardized hiring criteria and apply them consistently to all candidates. That can help ensure you judge everyone by the same yardstick. This recommendation has been given from the day one I started this challenge. So for every bias, it always asks to have clear procedure for hiring, transparent, when not only the hiring managers know the process, the criteria they have to follow, but everybody else in the company knows the same. So there's no question marks in the mind of anybody. Why it happens? When a woman becomes a mother, it can make others think that she's less committed to her career, even less competent. I don't understand the relation here. Just because you became a mother, you become less competent. Anyways, as a result, she's often held to higher standards and offered fewer opportunities. Seeing a gap in a woman's resume can trigger this maternal bias and hurt her chances of being hired. So you there who are in HR or leading positions, management positions, who has a voice of saying when choosing the candidates, the hiring people, um, have in mind this situation here, this gap in the resume that women might have, and think twice if you are having a bias or if she doesn't really have the skills needed for the position. So the next one goes into reviews and promotion. And here it goes. Someone suggests that a woman on your team be given a big high profile project. And a colleague says, I don't think this is a good time for her since she just had a baby. You see again the language, the expression, I don't think. So, don't think is not factual. Ask for fact. And also, what kind of comment is this? I would check what kind of colleague is this as well, because mind your business, no? This would be my first reaction if I was managing this person. Like I would, this would be what I feel. So even like this information might be relevant for me as managing and then considering I wanted to have this woman in the project, but the other side, I'll be thinking about this colleague, mind a business. Because there's one another thing here as a side, just a side note, that our the impression of the way we come across to the world also is also related to how we talk about others. For me to trust you, I have to be to see you as a trustworthy person, someone who can keep a secret, and someone who doesn't make this kind of double standards, double in between line messages. So if you're someone that said just throw at the table those kind of comments, you are not building a good reputation for your own self. Why it matters? Your company likely want to retain and promote talented women. Sidelining them, even with good intentions, works against that goal by denying them opportunities that can lead to advancement. Because if you're someone that says something like that, even with good intentions, other people in your team will listen to that and they will think, I'm not going to share anything with this person because she'll be throwing this there one day when I'm not present. Hmm? What to do? Remind your colleague that this could be a career changer project for whoever gets it. So it's better to let the new mom decide for herself whether or not she wants to take it on. Obvious. Why it happens? Motherhood, as we said before, motherhood triggers assumptions that women are less competent and less committed to their careers. As a result, they are held to higher standards and presented with fewer opportunities. Studies show that the maternal wall women face when they have kids is the strongest gender bias. Now you know. The next example go to everyday interactions, and here's the case. A colleague confides that they are frustrated that a woman on your team is taking her full maternity leave during such a busy time for the company. Why it matters? Comments like this can make it uncomfortable for employees to spend time at home with their children. And research shows this can lead to lower productivity and make employees more likely to leave. What to do? Explain that family leave is good for workers, family, and companies. When workplaces have good family leave policies, employees are happier, more productive, and more likely to stay. Plus, remind them that no one should have to choose between being a good employee and a good family member. Why it happens? Maternity leave is often viewed as a necessary cost, when though studies show that business outcomes can improve when companies offer leave. In addition, some people sometimes people sometimes assume that women who take time off for their children are no longer as committed to their jobs. And you heard the word here. People sometimes assume. What did I say about assumption? There you go. Everyday interactions. Here's our case. You're in a conversation with coworkers, and someone without children asks a woman with children, how do you manage work and raising your kids? You must be overwhelmed. This could be a genuine question, but this can have some in between lines kind of, we know. Why it matters. This question reinforces an often conscious belief that dedicated mothers can't also be dedicated employees. It also assumes that the woman is overwhelmed, which can feel like a judgment on her ability to handle her workload and may lead to her getting passed over for opportunities. If this happens a lot, it can make women feel unsupported as working parents, which can make them more likely to leave the company. What to do? There are a few ways you can respond based on what feels right. You can point out that feeling overwhelmed is something everyone experiences from time to time, whether or not they have kids. You can make the point that it's not just working moms who have a lot to manage. I imagine all working parents feel overwhelmed sometimes. And if your colleague doesn't seem overwhelmed to you at all, you can say that too. I want to make a short parenthesis here also. While I was reading this, I was thinking, because I'm not a mother myself. And on the other hand, mothers I receive comments that my life is free of troubles free as all roses, because I don't have the overwhelm of a family to look after. So for you women out there who is a mother, so be careful as well, because these comments can, most of the games, most of the cases will come from women themselves, because they think because they're women they are already overwhelmed, and they assume that other women are overwhelmed, and other mothers are overwhelmed, and of course they assume that someone without kids have a free and no worries life. So careful there. Why it happens? Many people fall into the trap of believing that women can't be fully committed to both work and family. That can fuel a skepticism about women's abilities. Fathers are often exempt from these assumptions. And lastly, another one in everyday interactions, which goes like this. A colleague comments that a mom on your team is working late at the office when she should be home with her family. You see, sometimes you think just how can women win this equation? What is the solution for this equation? Because if they leave in time, work, and they're mothers, people might say that they are not spending enough time at work, they are leaving soon because they're focused on the family and they're not committed. Then they decide to stay, they work late, they organize their lives, it's their business, and they organize their lives and they're working late, and someone then criticize them because they should be at home with their family. People, ladies, in many cases, are you women out there doing this kind of comment, making this kind of comments? Let's face it. Why it matters. All parents, regardless of their gender, should be able to manage their work and family responsibilities without judgment, and it's their business. What to do? You might push back on your colleague's comment by saying something like, I think it shows committed to her job, just like when a father stays late. Okay, this kind of comment is, for me, passive aggressive. Is in a way you are attacking a father, like attacking in a way men without them being there, or if the guy is a man, you are kind of attacking indirectly. I would rather say something different. I would rather say exactly what I said before. I believe it's her responsibility to balance her work and family. And if she's staying here, I believe that she knows how to do that she has that under control. It's not up to me, it's not up to us to judge that. And the next one, why it happens, when women become mothers, we often assume they can't be highly committed to both work and family. And when mothers do show that they are highly committed at work, they are often judged negatively for it, because the strong cultural belief that moms should be home with their kids. Okay, ladies, it's also in our hands to start changing this. I find that in many of those situations here, we have um, a strong, what's the word? It's also our fault in a way, because we have been seeding, we have been contributing for those bias to happen when we make those kind of comments against another woman, against another mother. So watch what you say, watch your language, in the sense, as we said, use something that's objective when you want to get facts. Subjective language leads to misunderstandings and misinterpretations, and also can be seen as passive aggressive. So be careful with your language. Communication, effective communication, is the key to avoid all these situations. I'm convinced that communication, effective communication, is our strong foundation to build a healthier and happier professional and personal lives, relationships, and environments. Trust me on this. So we continue tomorrow, and I haven't decided yet what we are going to talk tomorrow, but see you tomorrow then. Thank you for all watching, and bye for now.